Matthew 24:14 says, this gospel of the kingdom must first be preached in the whole world, and then the end of the age will come. When you therefore see, that therefore connects, right? When you therefore see, now we're really at the very end, after the gospel of the kingdom has been announced worldwide, when you therefore, in connection with what I've just said, that therefore is very important, when you therefore see the abomination of desolation standing where he ought not to, in Mark 13:14, the parallel, there's a masculine pronoun there thrown in to give you clarity, the abomination of desolation standing where he, it ought to be an it, but you break the rules of grammar to tell us that it's a human person there, standing where he ought not to. That is the Antichrist. Didn't Paul speak about the man of sin in 2 Thessalonians going into the temple and sitting down there? Now, I make this point too. The temple there means the building. If Paul wants to talk about you individually as a temple, or indeed the church corporately as a temple, he will introduce you as a temple. He will not introduce you as the temple. You are a temple, or collectively, true church people are a temple of God, figure of speech. But in 2 Thessalonians 2, he says, when you see the abomination of desolation, that's Jesus' words, parallel to Paul, when you see the man of sin going into the temple of God and sitting down, it's implied there. Now, exactly what is meant by the apostasia there isn't clear to anybody. There's a final apostasia. Has that been going on all these years? Maybe, maybe not. There's a final insult to God that paves the way for this man of sin. Exactly whether that's continuous or whether it's future, I will wait and see. But there's a final outrage. Those of us who are very much against abortion, for instance, would say that the idea of killing babies by the million is an ultimate atheistic insult to God's creation. I don't think that's necessarily apostasia there, but you could say that. Whatever this turned out to be, but you've got to have a temple. We haven't got a temple, but you can have a temple. I'm told by experts, some of our people are very expert in this field, that given the cue to do this, they could put this thing up in a few months even. Everything is ready to build a temple there. That will be interesting when they do that. Jesus here is addressing then this very end time event. There's going to be a great tribulation, and when you refer to it, of course, it becomes the Great Tribulation, and you'll find that in your notes in Revelation 7:14, the Great Tribulation. That's the only other reference to it expressly, Revelation 7:14. And you do not have to go through this. Quite clearly, Paul says to the Philadelphia type of church there, that if you don't need to be tested to the point of martyrdom, then you don't have to go through it. In fact, Jesus recommends that when you see these events happening, then flee, get out of there quickly. If you're in Jerusalem, you flee to the mountains. For then, when this happens, there will be the Great Tribulation, a Great Tribulation. It certainly is a Jewish setting there, there's no question about it. But we know that the gospel of the kingdom was preached to Jews first of all too, and then to the wider world. This is scripture for us. So wherever it is, if you're in Georgia, that's a different situation, we'll have to wait and see. But the point is, you don't have to go through the Great Tribulation, but you escape it by going to a physical location on earth. If you're in that area, you can escape. For then there will be a great tribulation such as never has happened. Where's he getting that verse from? Daniel 12, verse 1. Daniel 12, 1, 2, 3 is a Bible master key. You're going to use this very frequently with your friends. It starts then in verse 1 with at that time. You look back at the previous chapter, you'll see it's the death and the final destruction of a wicked person, which is exactly what you expect. At that time. But the great event there is then the Great Tribulation at that time. At that time, there will be the Great Tribulation. At that time, it's almost as though Scripture anticipates that we're not going to get this right. So it repeats the word at that time, I think 4 times there. At that time. At what time? At that time. It's very clear. Your child of 2 understands that. The Great Tribulation, followed immediately by the resurrection of the dead. This is a stupendous event. This is the event at which we Christians are hoping to be immortalized. Does that get your attention? Most of us, some of us are in our later years. Supposing we live another few days only. Well, that's rather sad. I hate to say goodbye to life. Life has a lot of interesting things going in it. Doesn't matter. Jesus has overcome death. He's offering you immortality, but not only that, as a bonus, You want to fix this horribly messed up world. You're going to tell Arabs and Jews not to imagine killing each other ever again. You're going to put an end to cancer, much of which, of course, in terms of diseases we're bringing on ourselves, obviously. All of that's going to be changed. So it's the only thing that will feature on God's commercial, as I'll tell them in Virginia. God's commercial is, how would you like to have immortality? How would you like to fix the world with Jesus, put an end to all the horrific things that now go on? So that gives us then exactly what we need. The Matthew 24:14, this gospel of the kingdom, not vaguely any old gospel. Because if you preach the wrong gospel, you're doubly cursed in Galatians 1. That's another story. Must get that right. The gospel about the kingdom, God's solution, God's immortality solution to all of our problems. The teaching of Jesus must be for us. So if conditions are unfavorable, when Barbara and I were there in Israel in 1970, we noticed that they were trying to stone boys riding their bikes on Saturday. That's absurd, but awful. So you don't want the external added difficulties of fleeing on a Saturday, because the gates would be shut. There is an escape for those faithful people who are deemed not to be needing to be tried and tested to the point of death. All right, you've made it. You've shown by your life up to the time at the beginning of the Great Tribulation that you don't need to be tested to the point of martyrdom. Martyrdom is an ultimate testing. It's an ultimate testing. Are you willing to give your life for the faith? That may not be required of everybody. Some of them they will kill. That's what the text says. Some of them